Is Brent Axe. We're live here on the Syracuse Orange Football Facebook page, and we are coming off the heels of a Syracuse football loss, a close but no cigar loss today. A real close one, as a matter of fact, for Syracuse as they fall to the Boston College Eagles at the Carrier Dome. Final score of 16-13 at the Dome. So Syracuse now on a 5-game losing streak. They fall to 1-7 on the season overall. And boy, this was a close one for Syracuse. It really was. And the biggest question that is coming out of this matchup is where's the kid been, right? When Tommy DeVito went down in that Duke game for Syracuse, you got to wonder why Dino Babers didn't feel like Jacobian Morgan, the youngster, should have taken over for Rex Culpepper at that point. Normal coaching philosophies apply when you have a fifth-year redshirt senior who's been a backup, who's played before. Natural coaching instincts will put that player in. But clearly the more talented quarterback sat on the bench maybe a little longer than he thought. He is a freshman, did have to get up to speed, get enough practices in, and I can understand Babers thinking there. But all told, it was an impressive debut for the freshman quarterback for Syracuse. Just not enough to grab the win in this matchup. So great to have you here. Happy Saturday, everybody, on a Saturday where a Syracuse alum was officially, declared the winner of the presidency. Joe Biden named the 46th president of the United States by a number of media calls, and that'll all be certified and everything, and dot the I's and cross the T's. So Syracuse got a win there, having an alum elected president, even though they didn't get a win on the football field today. And there's a number of things to dig into in this one. A surprising game. Syracuse did cover the 14-point spread. They do have a bye week upcoming now, and the next time they'll get on the field will be a Friday night matchup against Louisville, and that's an interesting game in the sense that both teams are supposed to come off a bye week, but because Louisville had a game postponed due to COVID procedures, they actually will have to play next week and play Syracuse on Friday, November 20th, off of a short week now. So we'll see if Syracuse will be able to take advantage of that. Jacobian Morgan will get to go into the bye week and learn more about what it takes to be a starting quarterback. He played the whole game. We didn't see Dylan Markowitz in this one. He is clearly the quarterback down the stretch here for Syracuse with 3 games remaining. I wouldn't be surprised to see Dylan Markowitz get some play somewhere down the road here, just so Syracuse can see what they have in their other freshman quarterback on the roster. But Morgan was impressive. And let's start there. We'll go into the stats. We'll go into some other things, react to what you guys are saying, certainly here today. But Morgan was impressive. The best throw he made on the day, honestly, was a touchdown that didn't count. There was a throw where he rolled to his right. He put the ball on a nice arc to Taj Harris in the end zone and put the ball exactly where he needed to be. Now, Taj wasn't able to stay in bounds on that one, barely. He had a toe on the line. And that just goes to show you that you can't teach those things, right? That's just instinct. That's arm strength. That's accuracy. That's knowing where to go with the football. And that is something that Morgan really brings to the table for Syracuse. We saw it with Eric Dungy, right? Not exactly the same, but when you have a quarterback that can make plays with their feet in terms of not running the football, but extending passes, getting outside the pocket, keeping their eyes downfield, it just gives you those extra 2-3 seconds to make a play that were not there under Tommy DeVito. Tommy would tend to either stay in the pocket or take off and run, not with his eyes down the field, but just to make a play with his feet. And Rex Culpepper just didn't have the mobility at all to make a play that way. So to see a quarterback like that again on the field for Syracuse, he kind of reminded me of Marvin Graves back in the day. Not necessarily McNabb, but more like a Marvin Graves. And boy, I enjoyed watching this kid today. And you kind of wonder if Syracuse has a gem on their hands there. They've got a few games to go here, and they're going to be aggressive in the offseason, seeking a quarterback in the transfer market, I would imagine. We'll see what Tommy DeVito decides to do if he comes back next year. I would imagine he would. But a lot of players have interesting decisions to make after this season. But all told, I thought it was a great debut for Jacobian Morgan. The defense hung in there. The defense played a lot better today than they played. Boston College was able to run the football. BC went back to this ground and pound approach that they've traditionally had. But this was a BC team that came in with a lot more of an open offense. Phil Dracovic, their transfer quarterback for Notre Dame, came in as the fifth leading passer in the country, 1,875 yards coming into this game. He was held in check for the most part by that Syracuse defense. The secondary played extremely well. Syracuse made a number of third down stops in the second half, and that has not been the case for most of the season for Syracuse. And it was tight. It was close. It was there for the taking, but Syracuse never took the lead in what was a tight game. BC just had to grind one out, and that's exactly what they did on the day here. So let's jump in and give you some numbers from this one. BC had 20 first downs to Syracuse's 14. Boston College ran the ball 47 times for 191 yards. That's an average of 4 yards a carry. Syracuse ran for just 52 yards on 21 attempts. Sean Tucker was back on the field today. That was encouraging to see for Syracuse. Did have a couple of nice plays, just couldn't really get that rhythm back. Cooper Lutz, not used as much in the running game today, had a couple of big plays in the fourth quarter out of the passing game, which he brings that element to the table, and I'd like to see him more involved there going forward, not only the rest of the season, but maybe big picture. We'll see where he fits in there. On the passing side, BC had 20 receptions for 208 yards, Syracuse 19 for 188. So all told, Boston College ran 76 plays for 399 yards. Syracuse ran 51 plays for 240 yards. And that's continuing a trend. There's been a real gap there in the past 4 or 5 games, really in this losing streak, where the defense is on the field just a little bit too long, just can't make enough plays. Certainly the last 2 weeks, it's been better in terms of yardage. Wake Forest, won by a bigger margin, 38-14. But when you got one team running 76 plays, the other running 51, that gap has been there. You go back a few games, Syracuse was, I think it was 102-52. I think it was the Duke game. Somebody can double check me on that one. So that's the risk the offense takes. They did for 1 series, 2 series, really. They got back into that really quick tempo, and for some reason they didn't stick with that. And I'd like to see Sterling Gilbert and Dino Babers get back to that after the bye week here with all these playmakers on this offense. Morgan obviously showing he handled what they put on his plate today. They can add a little bit more to that for Syracuse's Friday night game against Louisville. And I'll tell you what, they're going to need to play that way against Louisville. Louisville's had a disappointing season by their standards. Their expectations were much higher, but there's still a lot of speed on that offense, and they like to go, go, go. And I think that game could end up being kind of a back-and-forth shootout more than today ended up being, certainly with the grinder that this one was. But that's something that's got to pick up for Syracuse. They were much better on third down in this game, and you got to give them credit for that. 3 of 11 doesn't sound like much, but there were some key third downs that they picked up in this one. It's still not a high percentage overall, and they're going to be one of the lowest rated third down teams in the country there. BC was 10 of 19 on third down. That was a real issue for the defense. It's been an issue the past couple of weeks. We mentioned they did make some third down stops in the second half. It was more of a quality, not a quantity type of thing. But overall, for the entire game, BC had much more success in the first half on third down. So that number gets inflated a little bit there. Syracuse kept the penalties even with BC. Both teams had 7 penalties on the day. And I'll tell you what, there was a play in the fourth quarter that I think the officials really botched. There was a fumble. Now, turnovers cost Syracuse in the second half of this game. Jacobian Morgan's first real mistake as a Syracuse quarterback. He threw an interception that he tried to rush the pass. There was a miscommunication, it seemed like, on that play with Taj Harris. Threw into double, even almost triple coverage, what I was trying to say. And, okay, turnover. It happens. On the next series, Sean Tucker, the referees had a really late whistle. He was held up. He should have been given forward progress. He clearly was stopped. They didn't blow the whistle, and Boston College was able to strip the football away. That was a bad call. That was a bad call. I went back and looked at it a couple of times. The refs let that go way too long, and that's really costly. Boston College got great field position. They missed a couple of field goals in this game, ended up kicking a field goal. That was the difference in a 16-13 football game here. But with all those missed points and missed opportunities, to take a possession away like that from Syracuse unnecessarily, awful call on the referee's part. Syracuse ended up scoring and coming back. Jacobian Morgan, I think, scored a touchdown on that play. It didn't matter because he ended up throwing a touchdown to Aaron Hackett, throwing a touchdown to a tight end. What a concept. On the next possession, but that was a bad call on the ref's part. They made a few really questionable calls in this game. By no means completely their fault, but in a tight game, you got to blow the whistle on that. Sean Tucker should not have been in that position where BC could strip the ball away from him. It was forward progress. You got to blow the whistle on that one. So it's a lost chance for Syracuse because this was an opportunity to get a second win of the season going into your bye week. I don't know if they could beat any team left on their schedule. We mentioned Louisville's had a down year, but I just don't think Syracuse could keep pace with them. We'll see. Coming out of a bye week, and they'll be on a short week, and maybe Jacobian Morgan has lit a little bit of a fire under the offense here. But going on the road on a Friday night to beat Louisville is a big ask. You got Notre Dame down the road here. There's some tough games. 3 games left for Syracuse in this 2020 season. Here you had a grinder that you were in the whole way against a rival at home and just couldn't quite get over the hump. And credit to BC's defense. They made some stops. They got after Morgan. There were a few possessions in the second half that Morgan was sacked. He stayed in the pocket too long. Things you would expect a freshman quarterback to do in this one. But I think if you're a Syracuse fan, you walk away from this with a positive impression of Morgan in real time. I'll be curious to see what Dino Baber says about him because he kind of scoffed at his performance against Wake Forest, saying that wasn't a real situation. That was 7-on-7. Well, in a real football game against a real football team, and Jeff Hafley, I think, is doing a great job with Boston College. That kid stepped up and I think showed that Syracuse has something here. And I'll be curious to see what he does in the next 3 games for sure. So that's what I have to say. Let's see what you guys have to say in the comments here. Mike saying these next 2 weeks are big. You can see the offense really wants to play for this quarterback. They'll start to click with the 2 weeks of practice time with Morgan under center with the first team offense and a full game under his belt. Mike, I think that's a great comment because this week they split the reps. Rex Culpepper, who suffered a lower body injury earlier this week, he wasn't going to start anyway, but he got some first team reps before that happened. Dylan Markowitz actually got some first team reps. Morgan got some. I think you go into the bye week and you say, this is Morgan's team now. You give him the bulk of first team reps while giving Dylan Markowitz some of them just in case he has to come in a backup role. But Morgan went out there, as you said, Mike, and I think really showed that, okay, let's put some life into this thing. I can extend plays. I can find receivers. He throws great on the run. He keeps his eyes upfield. He's poised. BC got to him a few times, but you got to expect that in the kid's first start. But he looked like he belonged out there. There's a presence. He's a big dude. He can see over the line. That offensive line started to break down a little bit in the second half. Boy, they can't afford any more injuries. Chris Elmore got banged up in the second half. He was okay. He walked off the field on his own power, and Syracuse has a bye week here, which will certainly help, but they cannot afford any more injuries, particularly with only 3 games to go and the line that thin. Dakota Davis was back, which is good news for Syracuse, but that is still a razor-thin offensive line in terms of depth for Syracuse at this point. Jeff says, Brent, I thought the kid showed a lot of stuff today to get excited. Just looks to have a really good feel and a calm demeanor. Demeanor's a good word for it. He's calm. He's poised. He looks like he knows what he's doing out there. And they probably gave him a limited playbook, probably 50% of what they run. They probably focused on what he does well. And that's fair. I would expect that. And where he really flourished was in tempo. When he's just playing and he's just slinging it, 1, 2, 3, get rid of the football, he did really well. He struggled a little bit more, as you would expect a freshman to, when he really sit in the pocket, let plays develop, defense breathing down his neck. Didn't go so well for him there, but that's expected. But all told, I think he looks like he belongs out there. He looks like he belongs to be the quarterback of this team, at least for the next 3 games. Then we'll see what happens in the offseason. But as Jeff points out here, the offensive line, still having problems. They just can't get it right. They just can't get on the same page, literally, because there's so many players that have shuffled in and out. And that is going to be a major priority for Syracuse in this offseason. They've already targeted some JUCO players. Our friend Mike McAllister over at Sports Illustrated reported earlier this week on a couple of JUCO players that Syracuse is targeting. I apologize, I don't have their names right offhand here, but they're big dudes. 6'7", 350. Syracuse has a couple of incoming offensive linemen that Mike Cavanaugh, the offensive line coach, recruited out of Hawaii that are big players. And remember, the transfer rule changes in college football. You've got a new opportunity now to go out and get transfers, and they don't have to wait a year. That gets waived, a one-time only rule. You can go where you want without the 1-year transfer waiver rule. So that applies to everybody, by the way. That's something that a lot of teams are going to take advantage of, but Syracuse needs to get really aggressive on the offensive line front, not only to improve their offensive line, but to build depth in the offensive line. I think you saw that on the other side of the field. Boston College is a really good offensive line. They were able to run the football again today, not to the extent they did last year. I mean, last year BC ran for 496 yards with A.J. Dillon and David Bailey, who was on the field today for BC. Only 191 yards today, but given some of the huge marks that Syracuse has given up this season, it's actually been an improvement in the past couple of weeks. I'm sure you guys saw this in the college football world today. Liberty, number 25 Liberty, it came down to the wire. It was a tight game. I was keeping an eye on that while watching Syracuse beats Virginia Tech today. And maybe Liberty wasn't a joke. Maybe we shouldn't have, scheduled Liberty as the easy win game. Hugh Freeze doing some things down there, but that was one team, Duke being the other, just ran all over Syracuse. It looked like that defense was just falling apart, but they've kind of slowly but surely improved a little bit here. And even without Andre Cisco, even without Trill Williams, who joined the parade this week and is off to the National Football League, good luck to him. And I think he's actually going to get picked in the upcoming 2021 NFL Draft. Garrett Williams and Ife Melifonwu have just done brilliant work. If he comes back next year, he's a redshirt junior. He's got to make a decision about whether to return next season. I think he's going to. I don't have any inside knowledge on that or anything. I just think it's a good choice for him, and I think he will be back. Garrett Williams is a star. That kid's just flat out a star. They've been up there all year long. Pro Football Focus has noted that they came into this game with the most targets in college football in terms of individual targets, each of them, 1-2 on the list, that have not given up a touchdown. That's impressive. And look, there's 5 players in that secondary now in the 3-3-5 defense. Syracuse is going to need a consistent, deep bench, if you will, rotation, a stable of cornerbacks, safeties, and players at that rover position that's a part of the 3-3-5. And they're showing they have it. I think Rob Hanna's looked impressive. I think that Jihad Carter's looked impressive. A couple of guys that have gotten out there have struggled, and you would anticipate that with so many young players and freshmen on the field. But Garrett Williams is a star. Ife Melifonwu is ranked currently as one of the top 25 cornerbacks in college football by Pro Football Focus, which does a really good job ranking these things and putting analytics into things and kind of combining the two. Trill Williams isn't even on that list, and I think he's going to get drafted in 2021. So that's important there. The defense kept Syracuse in this game. I mean, they gave up some third downs, as we mentioned, but some key third down stops in the second half. The secondary was brilliant. It was bend but don't break. They never broke. The offense just couldn't get there. And, down the stretch, Dino had some timeouts. The onside kick didn't work. There was just a few things that came up short there. I think the game plan could be a little more aggressive. I've said it before. I can't really I see Christopher's comment here. It says, Brent, can you explain what kind of offense Sterling is running? Tecmo Bowl, totally no creativity and some dumb calls. Chris, I was just getting to that. And when you talk about Tecmo Bowl, you're talking about the first Tecmo Bowl where there was only like 4 calls in the whole game? When you got the Super Tecmo Bowl, at least the offense expanded. I'm not impressed with Sterling Gilbert. I don't know why. And he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, and the offensive line is constantly changed. You got a freshman quarterback out there, but you got playmakers, and they're just not doing a good enough job of calling the right plays, going into tempo enough, and getting the ball in the hands of your playmakers. Hopefully Morgan can do that a little bit more going down the stretch here, but Sterling Gilbert is just not somebody I'm impressed with, and I know why Dino Babers hired him. He's coached with him before. They've had some success in the past, but he's just way too darn conservative for a orange is the new fast, aggressive Syracuse offense here. I don't know what mark he's put on this offense that wows you, that makes you say, man, this guy. Whereas Tony White on the defense has done just that, and he's got some holes to fix. But I think by and large, people look at that 3-3-5. They like it. It's aggressive. The secondary's been good. Once you get to recruit some more of your own talent, a lot of the freshmen that have had to come out there and play have been great. Young players, Michael Jones has been fantastic, the MVP of that defense, making some more great plays today. That's encouraging. I think people see something they're excited about there. When it comes to Sterling Gilbert and the Syracuse offense, I'm not excited by it. I'm more frustrated with it than anything. They don't throw to the tight end enough. You got Nykeem Johnson, you got Taj Harris, you got Anthony Quealy. I think Ed Hendricks is a player on the rise here. and it just never matches what it needs to be. And, you need an offensive line to do that. But now that you've got a quarterback that can extend plays, that can overcome some of your issues, you want to minimize your weaknesses, you want to exploit your strengths and hide your weaknesses. And you got a quarterback now that can do that. So let's see it turn up the notch a little bit going forward. I don't understand why he doesn't do that. And there's been some injuries there, right? Now that Sean Tucker's healthy again, I brought it up earlier. I think Cooper Lutz adds a pass catching dynamic to this offense. Come on, let it rip. Get aggressive. I don't know why Syracuse hasn't done more of that. 3 of 11 on third down today. I mentioned to their credit, they executed on a couple of third downs there that they really needed. But overall, you can't have an offensive-minded team and be that bad on third down, not get the ball in the hands of your playmakers. And we brought up the NFL draft earlier. Syracuse has not had an offensive player drafted since 2013. They're the only team in the ACC that has that mark since they joined the league, and that was the year they did in 2013. This is supposed to be an offensive-minded team, offensive-minded head coach, and now an offensive coordinator that's supposedly in lockstep with this orange is the new fast approach. They better find some talent. They better find some players that fit that draftability mold. Tristan Jackson ended up in the NFL with the LA Rams, but he was a free agent and hasn't played in a game this year, hasn't been active for the Rams this year. And it's not to say there haven't been some players, Eric Dungy, Ahmed Atawu, Steve Ishmael, who was from the prior coaching staff, but that have flourished in this offense. That's obviously been the case, but none of them have been drafted. So they got to find that, whereas Syracuse has had some defensive players drafted. Alton Robinson's been great for the Seahawks. They've had a couple of punters drafted, right? Sterling Hoffrichter and Riley Dixon, but they got to get back to that. And that's a good comment from you, Chris, and it's one I agree with totally. I'm not impressed with Gilbert, and it's really going to take a lot for me to come around on that. I'll be fair, and we'll analyze it as we go here, but as Thomas notes here in the comments as well, 54 plays, and you look at some of the play charts in terms of number of plays this year, it's not where it should be for this offense at all. John saying BC officials gave this game to BC. The fumble was a joke, and the Morgan touchdown review was a joke. I don't think the refs necessarily gave the game to Boston College away from Syracuse. They were bad. That Tucker fumble was absurd. That was not a play that should have been allowed. That was forward progress. It was an easy whistle to blow. He had nowhere to go. He got held up. Blow the whistle. You can't let BC be given an extra 2 seconds in that case is massive in order to strip the ball away, get a fumble. That's what they got. This is a bad call. This is absolutely a bad call. So Syracuse goes into a bye week now. They'll be back at it Friday, November 20th. It is a 7 o'clock kickoff. We'll be back at it after that game, Friday Night Lights here on the Krause Health Syracuse post-game chat here on the Syracuse Orange Football Facebook page. That's when we'll be back with you again. We'll be creeping closer to basketball season at that point, as Syracuse is scheduled to start against Bryant Friday the 27th. We're going to be doing some post-game chats as well. Not every game. It's not as big of a non-conference slate this year, so I would imagine we'll be doing a bunch of chats after non-conference games, just not all of them, but certainly every ACC game, so keep that in mind with basketball approaching here, but still a few football games to play, and we'll be here after all of them. But we're going to take next week off, as the football team is. Syracuse with a bye next week, back at it Friday, November 20th. And that's when we'll be back with you here on the post-game chat. Thanks to everybody checking in from all over the country, wherever you are today. Always appreciate that. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. And we'll be back at it after Syracuse takes on Louisville.